Joining us now as our guest host for the next hour is Michael Nark. He is the CEO of Prenova Energy Management in from Hotlanta. Thank you so much for being with us on set.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
Appreciate your time. Are you seeing inflation in your business?
I think we are seeing inflation in the business, and people have been talking about inflation rising for a number of months, almost a year now, and I think we're finally starting to see that happen, and it's taking place here in the marketplace. And I think most businesses have been prepared for it. Some will not be, but I think I speak from an energy management perspective and our company's focus and what we do in the marketplace, and certainly we're prepared for it, and I think others will be as well.
How do you prepare for that?
I think you actually prepare your customers for it because your customers, in our case, being much more energy centric, our customers need to be prepared for increasing prices across the board, and they're already going to fight that in terms of at the consumer level, and indirectly that's going to have an impact on their costs as well, and tighten their profit margins for sure.
But since you are sitting on this great perch to see all energy management across the board, how is energy feeding in directly to inflation?
I think energy is feeding in with, first of all, I think what happens historically is that there's always been a focus on nuclear and the question about whether nuclear is going to be a long-term viable solution or not. It's always going to have to be a part of anybody's strategy. But as such, there's other pieces and parts, natural gas, that play a part in that, and where does just in general the raw material or the commodity come from to actually support the energy needs both here in the States and across the globe as well. And there's pressure on that. And when there's pressure and you see oil prices and oil prices going up, production being limited to some extent, that's naturally going to have an influence on inflation for sure.
Michael, hi, it's Louisa in London. Do you see the supply story trailing off? If we're looking at a slowing global economy, if we still are looking at a slowdown in global growth, isn't supply going to pull back, and doesn't that mean that oil is going to feel the pinch as well?
I certainly believe so, Louisa. Thank you for the question, and certainly so. As supply reduces, that's going to have some significant drivers. But there's a difference between energy and electricity, I guess, is one way to look at it. From an energy perspective, certainly that's going to have an impact, at the gas pumps, etc. But rising oil costs don't necessarily directly affect electricity in the near term. Natural gas is more of an influencing factor there, than oil itself.
Michael, this is Chloe in Singapore. Do you think what happened in Japan actually has changed the perception of the way the industry was moving towards in terms of natural gas or even nuclear?
Chloe, a great question, and certainly, the situation in Japan has greatly influenced that. There will clearly be a pause, if you will, in a relook at the viability of nuclear in mass quantities. But from my perspective, and I think from the global perspective, nuclear is still required. It's a required source of generation for the marketplace. It helps us across the globe from an emissions perspective, and it will be there, but it's going to still take a little bit of time. Certainly everyone will learn from experiences, as they always do, in terms of advances in technology and safety, and that will be the place as we continue to move forward with nuclear as part of an overall strategy, both domestically and internationally as well.
And we'll have another segment on this in about a half an hour, but alternative energy, is that a viable solution now?
Alternative energy is a viable solution. It has a ways to go. It's certainly, in terms of mass quantity, is where it has to go, and from an infrastructure perspective, be able to support it, I think that has to actually have some advances, and more specifically, the price points of it has to come down to have it be available to the masses, so to speak.
All right, and Louisa with a quick question.
Yeah, Michael, should we be looking more at solar power? I've had quite a few emails from viewers here over the past couple of weeks saying there's a lot of focus on nuclear after the disaster in Japan, but in reality we should be looking more towards some of the other alternative energy forms.
Well, Louisa, I think solar is in fact being looked at in a large part across all markets. In the States here, of course, we have certain segments that are very viable for solar, and other areas, frankly, are not. But overall, as a generating opportunity for electricity, certainly solar is part of it, and I think you've seen that recently in terms of the expansion opportunities for solar companies across the globe.
All right, Michael, we appreciate your time. You stick around, kindly enough. Michael Nark, CEO of Prenova. If you have any questions for him, you can send them over worldwide at cnbc.com. You'll take them?
Thank you. Absolutely.
Okay,
thank you,
great.
Nicole.
All right.